Riku and Xehanort, two boys wishing to get off an island. Two boys tested by darkness time and time again. Two boys misguided by fate. When one falls, the other perseveres. There have been so many parallels between Riku and all the versions of Xehanort, which leads me to believe that there has to be a deeper connection between them than just parallels for the sake of parallels. Or at least that's what I'll be doing on the surface to drag all the casual Kingdom Hearts fans in. If you're interested in the Master of Masters or the Child of Destiny, you clicked on the right video. This kinda serves as a sequel to my last theory video, so I highly suggest watching that one first, but you don't necessarily have to believe in that theory or watch it for this one to make sense. I recently announced my Patreon page, so if you're a fan of the channel and want some extra content, be sure to check it out in the description, but more on that at the end of the video. If you don't want to pay for a Patreon, that's totally understandable. You can actually support me just by watching this video completely for free. YouTube is the only platform that I'm able to be monetized on, and YouTube posts unfortunately don't have any sort of monetization. And if you're watching this on PC and you have an ad blocker, I'd greatly appreciate it if you turn it off just for this video. I'll admit that I use like 5 different ad blockers, but for smaller channels, I always turn it off so I can support them. So I highly suggest you do that for me and other smaller Kingdom Hearts content creators. And if you're a streamer or a content creator, feel free to react to this video on your channel. Enjoy! Let's start by discussing Riku and Xehanort's motivations for leaving the island. Riku tells Kairi that if she hadn't come to the island, he probably wouldn't have ever thought about his whole plan of leaving, making his motivation come from an outside source affecting him. But we also know that even before he met Kairi, Terra visits Destiny Islands. Riku asks him if he's from the outside world. He reveals that he heard that there was a kid once who left for good, followed by a sequence turning into young Xehanort, and then Riku's Kingdom Hearts 2 appearance. What's interesting about this is that this showcase isn't just for the audience, but Terra visibly sees this too. When asked if there's a reason why he's interested in the outside world, Riku says he wants to be strong one day. He again mentions the boy that left, saying that he bets he's really strong now, and that strength he needs is out there somewhere to protect the things that matter. That's actually exactly what the brown-robed figure tells Xehanort to convince him to step through his corridor. If you lack the courage and strength, your dreams will remain dreams forever. So Xehanort was also affected by an outside source convincing him to leave the island. But to be clear, they both already had dreams of leaving the island, but the brown-robed figure was their waypoint in achieving the goal, literally and figuratively. Riku heard about Xehanort leaving the island, giving him the idea to do so as well. The first scene in release order that we ever see young Xehanort is in the opening scene of Birth by Sleep. Since he only had one line, they didn't cast a new voice actor for him. So, for both the English and Japanese versions of the game, they had Riku's voice actor David Gallagher and Mamoru Miyano voice him respectively. How interesting.
This world is just too small.
Another reason for Xehanort leaving the island is found in Dream Drop Distance, where he tells Sora that although he won't retain any memories of the future, his path will be etched, which will first lead him to seek the outside world. When Xehanort's about 6, the blue-robed figure explains to Xehanort that the day will come for him to leave the island. Xehanort says he has to live here so darkness doesn't find him, but that's only until he's strong enough to overcome the darkness. Considering the blue-robed figure dies, followed by Xehanort's heartless Ansem time-traveling to open a portal for his younger self, I'm not sure that this was supposed to be the plan. Sure, the blue-robed figure knew that the end of their time was coming and told Xehanort what he must do, but what they were describing for him to do was part of the belief that he was the Child of Destiny. The plan was supposed to be for Xehanort to become Light's master. But I think there's a possibility that the brown-robed figure is the direct cause of the prophecy not coming to fruition. Ansem opens the portal for himself, but doesn't give him a cloak or keyblade armor to protect himself, leaving Xehanort unarmed to protect himself from the darkness. This almost reminds me of an irresponsible parent just throwing their child into a body of water so they learn how to swim, without taking any safety measures to ensure that they can handle it. Except Ansem did this on purpose, to let his younger self drown in darkness. Sometimes all it takes is a single step, as Xehanort repeatedly tells us. One step to completely alter someone's life, someone's destiny. If the blue-robed figure never took Xehanort away from Old Skala, I wonder how the events would have played out. Apparently, there was no way to save Xehanort from his fate of becoming the Dark Seeker. So, in a timeline where no one took him to Destiny Islands, would Ansem simply time travel to Skala? Would he take him to the Skala of the future? Or by the time he'd get there, would Skala already take on the appearance of Dark Road Skala and my Skala theory is true? Would there even be a future Ansem to be able to time travel? Or was it always meant for the blue-robed figure to take Xehanort to Destiny Islands and he was just a pawn of destiny without realizing it? Is Xehanort being in this version of Skala and meeting Eraqus a canon event no matter what happens? Was Xehanort's entire life purpose to cause a child of destiny to exist while not being it himself? Or does a child of destiny not exist? Xehanort drastically altered a number of Kingdom Hearts characters' fate, including the 3 Keyblade wielders in BBS, alongside Sora, Kairi, and whom I'll soon go over, Riku. So if any of them are the child of destiny, Xehanort played a role in their uprising as this child. Same as the blue-robed figure, unbeknownst to them, played a role in making sure Xehanort grows up to do so. The entire next arc is about the Master of Masters and defeating the 13 ancient true darknesses, so this child of destiny has to be connected to that and not just a prophecy that ended during Kingdom Hearts 3. There has to be a reason why they gave us stepping stones from the ending of Union Cross showing someone take Xehanort from Skala to Destiny Islands, to then expand on that at the end of Dark Road teasing the child of destiny, which would have led into Missing Link. During the period of Old Gothic Skala, if we do get an adaptation of the events, we're very likely going to see a detailed overview about the Child of Destiny prophecy. The Master of Masters tells us that the Book of Prophecies doesn't cover much at all, just what the keyblade he gave to Luxu sees, so I do imagine it'd still be very vague. But I do have some very interesting theories about that, considering the Master presumably doesn't see anything that happened during Old Skala's era. If we take this scene from the announcement trailer as visual symbolism anyway, leaving Luxu being the only one able to write about what happens in order to prevent the last page from taking place. But that's a topic for another video. It's likely that during this adaptation we'll see the first time people during this era find out about the existence of the Child of Destiny prophecy and get to see what they think about it. Some could have sided with needing to protect what happens in the Book of Prophecy and treat it like a Bible, while others could actively try going against the book to see if they really could make a change and alter destiny. And the rest could wager on who the Child of Destiny could be. But to go back to some people treating the BOP like a Bible, there's actually some in-game evidence to support this. If you didn't know, the entire Skalan alphabet has been translated by some amazing people in the II Captain Kai and the Skala Survivors Discord server. Not everything can be perfectly translated, but most assets can be translated to English, just may have some typos. One of the findings that I don't think was ever made public was that in the Baroque Society's headquarters in the Missing Link beta, there's a flyer with text on the inside and a bunch of books resembling the Book of Prophecies on the outside. The word on top corresponds to these symbols, which spells out Bible. This suggests that all, or some people, probably would have treated the book like a Bible, something that's almost religious and sacred, considering it does have all of the events to come. As the blue-robed figure is telling Xehanort all the things that must occur during his life to fulfill the prophecy, he says that he says all of this with conviction because flowing through his veins is the blood of Ephemer. So one possibility is that one of the main things that the Book of Prophecies had written on the Child of Destiny was that they were going to be one of the Founders' descendants. At one point, I could see part of Missing Link's plot revolving around all of Ephemer's descendants wanting to be the Child of Destiny and proclaiming the title for themselves or their kids. A Nomura interview revealed that Missing Link was going to take place 4 generations after Ephemer was alive. An exact time frame for when the child would appear was clearly not given, considering the player doesn't know either and questions that it may still be too soon. By the time of Xehanort's birth, it would have likely been 5 generations later, which is supported by the player describing Ephemer as Xehanort's great-great-grandfather in the 5.0 version of the game. It states that those who were part of Ephemer's bloodline and those who branched off of them all created their own society and became active within them. So let's say Eraqus had 2 kids, and each of his kids also had 2. Going down the line, generation after generation, that'd create 16 candidates for the Child of Destiny within the 4th generation alone, all potentially fighting each other for the title. The blue-robed figure thought that Xehanort was supposed to be the one, but like I said, they're still questioning if it's still too soon. So what if they chose the wrong child? What if this lady here, who we assume is Xehanort's mom, had another child? This other child being Riku. She could have secretly kept him in hiding, or he's yet to be born. As discussed previously, you can check out my Sigurd theory to hear more about this, where I discuss the extreme similarities that Sigurd has with his Norse mythology counterpart of the same name. This lady here would correspond to Gudrun, who's known to have her kids killed right in front of her. In Kingdom Hearts, due to the blue-robed figure knowing certain events from the BOP, they have her only child taken away and completely change the child's destiny and light from expiring, or so they're led to believe. Now obviously this era of Scala takes place way before the present Kingdom Hearts timeline, but as you may know due to my Scala theory, time doesn't flow at the same rate in every world. So her child could have already lived a full life by the time Xehanort returns back to Scala, or they could have barely aged at all. If they took Riku to a place where time flows a lot faster, like the Realm of Darkness where time doesn't exist, Riku could have essentially time traveled forward in time without requiring any of the rules of time travel. Destiny Islands seems to have some very fast time dilation, at least before BBS. If Riku is in fact closely related to Xehanort by blood, then there's a high chance that Riku was also born in Old Scala and taken to Destiny Islands as an infant. Allegedly, we haven't seen his parents, but there's a possibility that Riku's parents are both still alive and they migrated to Destiny Islands alongside him. Considering their distant relative was the founding father of Scala, and their mom is depicted wearing very fancy clothes, it can be assumed that they live pretty prestigious lives in Scala. And although not inherently canon, I do want to bring up this illustration from the Kingdom Hearts 1 manga, depicting Riku standing on a luxurious looking balcony. This could be implying that Riku's family is more well off than the rest of the residents in town. I did try looking for a similar home in no-clip mode, but couldn't find anything resembling it. The only sprinkles of family that we've had from original Kingdom Hearts characters are just loose mentions of parents. They only started showing signs of wanting to explore family within original KH characters further in Union Cross, where it's revealed that Strelitzia and Lauriam are siblings. And then again at the end of Union Cross, which was set up for Dark Road and Missing Link. Dark Road gave us our second siblings with Baldur and Hoder. If we compare them side by side, they have the exact same hair color and pupil color. If we use this knowledge and compare them with Ephemer's relatives, it seems like Xehanort inherited his mother's eye color and his great-great-grandfather's hair color, albeit the hair texture is pretty different. Now, if we were to consider Riku as a brother or a close relative to Xehanort and now compare Riku instead, we see that Riku's original eye color is exactly the same as Ephemer's. Not only that, but his 2D version seems to have the same exact nose texture too. The reason why Riku's eye color changes in KH3, or at least the reason that would make sense to me canonically, is because he was Sora's Dream Eater. Dream Eaters' eye color changes based on their disposition to their owners. In Kingdom Hearts 4, depending on what happens between Sora and Riku's relationship, maybe they'll change colors again. Another interesting comparison that we can do is compare Brain and Eraqus. They almost have the exact same eyes, nose, and mouth. I've seen a lot of people make fun of fans who see someone with a similar hair color to a present KH character and instantly think they're related, but I think there's some merit to it. But speaking of bloodlines, Missing Link was supposed to have a huge focus on them. And although it's not confirmed, Remus being Axel's ancestor and Inept being Aqua's sure does seem likely. So just looking at Riku's and Xehanort's appearance, it does look like they could be closely related. I'll go into some parallels into why Riku could be the child of destiny, but if you'd like a full video topic on that, I'll direct you to this amazing video by Bondforge Sky. To circle back to Riku, under the surface, he isn't just a confident teenager looking for a way to leave the island to get stronger, but someone who's jealous. Even before he gets manipulated by Ansem and Maleficent, Riku feels discontent with who he is. Ansem, feeding on those insecurities, makes him think darkness is the only way for him to get stronger so he can overcome his jealousy. He ends up turning to the darkness, letting it devour him. It's his way of coping with what he doesn't have, in hopes it could give him the strength to fill the void within his heart. The moment of giving into the darkness is something he later realizes was his moment of weakness. This jealousy he feels is circled back to in Kingdom Hearts 2, where he outright tells Sora,
To tell you the truth, Sora, I was jealous of you. I wished I could live life the way you do.
His character file expands on this, writing about Riku's thoughts during this conversation. When did I start harboring that feeling? Was it when Sora became a hero of the Keyblade? Or did I feel that way when we were still on the islands from the time when we were kids? The reason I fell into darkness was because of my jealousy of Sora. But it wasn't his fault, it happened simply because I was weak. This way of thinking down upon yourself is also what young Xehanort occasionally does. During one of Xehanort and Eraqus' chess games, Xehanort says,
Maybe I won't go as far as you. When the world needs a defender, they'll pick you, Eraqus.
This doubt may have eventually manifested in Xehanort feeling the need to use darkness to get stronger too. Xehanort was right though, Eraqus is the one they ended up giving stewardship over Scala to. Riku was supposed to be the one chosen by the Kingdom Key, but as a result of interacting with Ansem in the brown cloak, he opened up his heart to darkness that he couldn't control, changing his destiny. Ansem, time traveling back to his younger self, is described as a canon event that can't be changed because it's a paradox. He has to time travel back to open the corridor for his younger self to Scala, which would eventually cause him to meet the Master of Masters and time travel to DDD to meet his 12 other selves. But what if all of this was never originally meant to happen? In the words of Odin, destiny can be so cruel. We're already 10 pages into the script, and I've barely gone over things outside of the end of Dark Road and tutorial for KH1. Perhaps it's time. Kingdom Hearts 1's opening shows us the first instance of a character holding out their hand for the other to grab. In this case, it's referencing a similar scene during the game of Riku reaching out for Sora to join him in leaving the island. It isn't directly shown in KH1, but Retrain of Memories reveals to us that it was Riku who plunged the world into darkness. Recoded shows us that Riku was working with Ansem in the brown robe to do this. It all circles back to him. If the brown-robed figure didn't exist, the trio wouldn't have the motivation or maybe even knowledge of other worlds. And even if they did, they would have just attempted to use the raft, but I'm not sure how far that would have taken them. Riku himself admits that Ansem's half the reason he's even on this journey. A little later in the game, in Monstro's world, Riku asks Sora to join him in saving Kairi, where he again does his iconic pose. Similar to Master Xehanort using Terra as a vessel, Ansem needs to use Riku as a vessel due to giving up his body to travel through time. Throughout the game, Ansem continues to manipulate Riku, especially during his moments of weakness. He tells him that darkness is the only way for him to become stronger. He uses a line here that sounds pretty similar to one of the requirements of the Child of Destiny, but it could just be a coincidence. When referring to the Kingdom Key, he says,
The heart that is strong and true shall win the keyblade.
The heart strong and true. At the beginning of KH1, Riku didn't get the powers of the Keyblade because his heart didn't stay true to light and it wasn't strong enough to control the darkness. The Child of Destiny needs to be tested by darkness time and time again, but press on, meaning the heart too has to be strong yet rejecting the darkness. As I've said in one of my posts, I think there has to be a connection between the Keyblade, the Kingdom Key, and the Child of Destiny. To give a brief recap about all of these, the Keyblade with the Greek letter Key was the original blade that was used during the Keyblade War that happened when the Master of Masters was a boy. This blade is yellow and green, with its yellow parts featuring 2 kingdom keys. Using this blade as a model, the master created his own keyblades by pulling them out from the depths of a heart. The kingdom key, the one that Sora uses, is silver, gold, and blue, which I recently realized could have been foreshadowing that it was originally meant for Riku, as it aligns with his color scheme. The keyblade that Riku ended up wielding instead is Soul Eater. Interestingly, Ansem tells Riku that he showed no fear in stepping through the door to darkness, but I wonder what Riku felt and saw as he walked through the corridors. We know that even with Keyblade armor on, darkness can eventually seep into your heart, so Riku and Xehanort just walking about is very dangerous. Did darkness whisper to him? Did he too feel hatred, jealousy, and doubt? Furthermore, when Xehanort walked through the corridor for the first time, he states that regardless of where these foul emotions were coming from, they helped him realize that his heart could still feel. But he has no idea what lay ahead, something he describes as more terrifying than the darkness: emptiness. We know that he eventually becomes tainted by darkness, suppressing his emotions. In the form of Xemnas, Sora tells him that there's more to a heart than just anger or hate, and asks if he remembers.
I cannot feel sorrow. Unfortunately, I don't.
However, during his defeat in Kingdom Hearts 3, his heart once again remembers how to feel. Here is where he says,
I feel the emptiness where my companions once stood. I took them for granted, and now I have nothing. My first surge of emotion in years. For as long as I can remember. And it's loneliness.
Indirectly showcasing Xemnas' and Xehanort's fear of being empty. Although he was already an empty shell, a husk, it didn't require him to listen to his heart and feelings, to remember his true self. After Xehanort walks through his corridor, based on what he tells Eraqus, he got the Scala by simply falling from the sky, which could be a reference to all sorts of things. If what Xehanort says is true, and he did arrive here by falling through the sky, it'd mirror his future Terranort self laying unconsciously in Radiant Garden, which was followed up by the authorities, including the leader of the town, and Braig or Bragi taking him in. And it would also mirror Riku after he arrived in Hollow Bastion. But to go back to this scene with Ansem, the last thing Riku does is accepts his heart becoming darkness itself, or the Japanese translation roughly saying that he'll become an all-consuming darkness. The theater mode titles this scene Becoming Darkness, which, as I'll soon go over, is likely foreshadowing. In a final attempt to become strong, to protect the things that matter, Riku fully succumbed to the darkness. In pursuit of power, Xehanort also had a similar impulsive moment. In Xehanort's second report in BBS, he writes about the first time he forgoes his armor protection when traveling the lanes between. This report was likely the inspiration for this Dark Road scene, with the key difference being that it isn't taking place in the lands between, but when traveling through a corridor of darkness. It states, but there, in the lanes between, I could feel the force of it, the power, and from then on, I forwent my armor's protection. I had been told the darkness would devour me, but what terrors could it possibly hold so long as I found the strength to control it? As the events of Dark Road reveal, his description of the event isn't entirely accurate. The true events show that Xehanort thinks his past experience in visiting the worlds affected his heart more than he realized. By this, he must be referring to his interactions with darkness and what he's learned from it. He then states, or perhaps these feelings were born when I left the island and first walked through these gates. And only now, when directly interacting with darkness once more, the negative emotions are coming to the surface. If the latter is what affected his heart the most, then it's true that Ansem's radical attempt at drowning Xehanort's heart in darkness worked. But what's also revealed is that he doesn't only do it because he thinks he's found the strength to control it, as he so confidently states in his report, but because he still believes that he's the child of destiny. I'll go back to this scene a little later, so keep this in mind. The scene ends with Xehanort not emerging victorious, but hopelessly left for the darkness to take over him. The hero to save him is none other than the Master of Masters, calling him the Singularity. I really like next-gen novelists' interpretation of this line, and it perfectly aligns with my own thoughts, so I'll leave a link to their video in the description. Novelists presented the facts that the Master of Masters told Ava to give the BOP to Ephemer. Mom says that the book is needed to shape the world into what it's supposed to be. Ava, knowing that the book is very important, decides to disobey her master and give the book to someone else in an attempt to stop the prophecy of darkness prevailing. She questions Brain about what he'd think if everything in life was destined, with Brain giving her all the correct answers she was looking for, the correct answers for him being the perfect candidate to give the book to. When thinking about Ava's plan, Brain questions that even if he did know the events of the future and try to change them, wouldn't that be what was written in the book? All of this would have no doubt been further explored during the era of Old Scala, with Union Cross giving us stepping stones. In UX, Brain states that he'll become a virus, something that Luxu goes on to describe as a virus in the program the Master of Masters so carefully wrote. This obviously also has to do with Darkness being another virus, with Darkness being at fault for Strelitzia not becoming a Union leader but being replaced with Ventus. Which all of this leads to Ventus time traveling to the Keyblade graveyard and Xehanort finding him, something that seemingly wasn't supposed to happen since Strelitzia would have been the one to take the pod instead of Ventus. Like I said, Missing Link would have obviously explained Brain's role to us, but with the information that we've been given all the way back in this Union Cross update from November in 2019, I think we can predict what Brain would have been doing for the rest of his life in Scala. During this scene with Brain and Ava discussing fate, it's clear that both of them realize that they must do something to change destiny and stop darkness from prevailing. Brain being granted access to the BOP is the catalyst for this. What I think Brain eventually does is create an organization willing to change fate, perhaps even the first organization that later inspires Xemnas to name his own cult an organization. It's interesting that the player says that during their first life, most of what was written in the Book of Prophecies was to be kept secret, and they don't mention this to be the case during their second life. Right after this line, they state that during their second life, they learned that darkness was to prevail and light expire, which is written at the end of the Book of Prophecies. But they then add that the Child of Destiny would change this outcome. So to me, this clearly means that the contents within the BOP aren't kept a secret during Missing Link's era. And there must be a passage within the book about the Child of Destiny. This would have culminated in there being a search for a child that fit the description, which I think would have been led by Brain. His lifelong goal would have been to find a way to change destiny. The child they would have eventually decided upon would have been Xehanort, leading to hiding him away from darkness. Now, the question is, what would be the original timeline? The timeline that doesn't involve attempting to change fate by having access to the book. Kingdom Hearts is a series with just one timeline, similar to Back to the Future. As we've previously discussed, the events of the series wouldn't have happened if Ansem didn't time travel to meet his younger self. But what if the original timeline stems back further than that? Beyond just Ansem time traveling to young Xehanort, beyond Xehanort being taken to Destiny Islands, beyond Strelitzia being killed by darkness, even beyond Ava and Brain going against the Master of Masters, to a time before the Master had a grand plan to defeat darkness. If the Master of Masters didn't organize a plan to destroying darkness, none of this would have happened. If we look back upon who the Master of Masters really was, he was a leader. But how did he become a leader? How did he recruit the foretellers and make everyone believe him that the Book of Prophecies is even real? Who are all these Keyblade wielders and where did they come from? There's just children here, so where did the Master get all these children? All of these are great questions that I'd like to see you, the Kingdom Hearts community, try to answer. This theory, the parallels between Riku and Xehanort, everything that's happened within Kingdom Hearts, including the tear through time, are all these new events just another phase in the Master's grand plan? People often describe Kingdom Hearts 1 as simple, but almost every plot point stems back to Kingdom Hearts 1. KH1 laid the foundation of the bond we all share, but the series continued to add layers into the game, even as recent as the latest full Kingdom Hearts release, Melody of Memory. Going back to where we were, after Riku stabs Maleficent, just like Riku in the scene before, she also feels the power of true darkness. What a coincidence that right after this scene, she meets up with an actual true darkness and gets trapped in the data world by the Master of Masters. Or is this not a coincidence at all? Remember, it's all connected. Anyways, an interesting fact is that after Riku directly accepts Ansem's help, their voices are heard in harmony.
The keyhole cannot be completed.
David Gallagher, Riku's English voice actor, recently confirmed that he was the first one to record his voice, meaning that Billy Zane had to voice over what he recorded and try to match the tempo. Later, when Sora sacrifices himself and Kairi awakens, Riku's too submerged in darkness to have his voice travel.
The keyhole is now complete. You have served your purpose.
Voices from the realm of darkness typically can't travel to the realm of light, which is also why Mickey wasn't able to contact Riku throughout the game. When it seems like all hope is lost and Ansem will again take Kairi like he did 10 years prior, Riku briefly takes back control. His body succumbs to the darkness, but his heart ends up in the realm of darkness. After wandering through the dark realm, Mickey speaks to him and tells him,
"The door of darkness will open soon. But it's a door we can't enter. Maybe you're here for the same reason I am. Maybe it was fate."
I don't think this is just Mickey being poetic. I think Mickey knew that this event had to happen. Now, not Mickey himself, but the person he gets his orders from, Yen Sid. After all, Yen Sid is the one always keeping him and everyone else in the loop. He was the one to tell Eraqus that the Princesses of Heart are in danger. He was the one to tell Mickey about Xehanort's potential of coming back. Yen said, "I'm onto you." This is further supported by 0.2, with Mickey knowing exactly where to look for the keyblade from the Dark Realm. He then tells Aqua something that sounds like is derived from some kind of ancient prophecy.
The door of darkness, tied by 2 keys. The door of darkness, to seal the light.
This is actually the text that's written on Ansem's machine. It states, "Realize the destiny, 7 hearts, 1 keyblade, 1 key to the door of darkness tied by 2 keys." Considering this machine was used by Ansem and apprentice Xehanort to conduct experiments, were they the ones to find this out? Or was it their predecessors? Or was it taken from a copy of the Book of Prophecies? Mickey tells Aqua that they can lock the door by using 2 keyblades, but they need help on both sides. When Aqua volunteers, Mickey says that the job's taken, when a visible flash of light blinds them. Riku's light, the light within the darkness. I don't want to go too deep into this as there's already videos dedicated to it, but isn't it interesting that Riku's constantly portrayed as a flashing light? My latest theory on who the Master of Masters is light as well. Is there a connection? Who knows? But speaking of Riku and this door, Riku seems to be the only one who can see the keyhole. During a flashback scene taking place right after Kairi lands on Destiny Islands, Sora and Riku discover the door, yet through clever framing, it's presented to us that only Riku can see the keyhole. In 0.2, we as the audience don't see the keyhole, and it's not clear if Mickey and Aqua do, but considering they don't mention it, just kinda push the door open, it seems to me like Riku's the only one who can see it. The door itself likely spawned as a result of Xehanort finding Radiant Garden's keyhole, since that would align with Kairi arriving on Destiny Islands around the same time. Ansem's speech at the end of KH1 summarizes Riku and Xehanort's upbringing quite nicely, so I'll let him summarize the events thus far.
And so this boy sought out to escape from his prison. He sought a way to cross over into other worlds, and he opened his heart to darkness.
Moving on to Chain of Memories, we learn about the room Riku spent his days during KH1 working for Maleficent. A voice speaks to Riku, rage-baiting him, telling him that he cast away his home, his friends, everything he had. It tells him to meet the people from his memories. As Riku goes and looks for them, all he can find are heartless. Annoyed, he calls out to the voice, asking him where they are. The voice asks him if he wants to see them, with Riku replying, "Of course I do." To me, this is oddly similar to the dialogue from this scene, with Xehanort asking his guardian if he'll get to see his mom and the people from his dreams again. As well as when he asks that magic mirror if the friends from his dreams were even real, or a figment of his imagination, because his efforts to find them have been in vain. In Riku's case, the answer he gets is the voice continuing to instigate him, telling him that he cast them aside, that he dreamt of the outside world and passed through the door to darkness, that he left behind his family, friends, and home, all in pursuit of darkness. Riku, regretful of his past actions and no longer believing in needing the darkness to be strong, rejects all of the voice's manipulation attempts. When Riku arrives on Destiny Islands, he's directly faced with his past, as Xehanort reveals it was Riku who opened the door to darkness on his island. Then, after defeating his metaphorical self, he sees Sora as the famous pink Kingdom Hearts 1 door appears behind him. If Riku walks through the door, he simply returns to the previous area. But it's interesting that they dedicated a cutscene to have the door appear, and then they chose to include this door and not the door they've been using for this area the whole time. The door even stays open once you've walked through it, which is interesting. Sora performs a light-based attack on Riku, knocking him back. This makes Sora, or at least Xehanort and Nominee's projection of Sora, say,
"You're just a pawn of the darkness."
Sora performs an even greater beam of light, causing the entire screen to go white. We then see Riku surrounded in a white void.
You won't fade.
Kairi prevents him from fading away, or at least Nominee's projection of Kairi. How interesting that the exact same thing happens in Kingdom Hearts 3 with Sora in the final world.
She's fighting with all her strength to keep you from fading away.
However, instead of Nominee talking as Kairi, it's Nominee talking for Kairi. Obviously, the concept of the final world wasn't established yet, but this could in fact be the final world. The door that appeared behind Riku is a door only seen during key moments in Kingdom Hearts. It's commonly associated with the Station of Awakening, as seen in Kingdom Hearts 1 and Missing Link. Charity tells us that Sora's wandered to the final world during his visits to the Station of Awakening, meaning that these doors must have some kind of connection to the final world too. By letting in and accepting the darkness, he's able to break free and return. Then, as he enters Twilight Town, he figures out that the voice that's been talking to him wasn't Ansem all along, it was actually Ansem. When Riku asks what he wants from him, he says he wants him to choose, calling him a special entity, affirming that he exists between light and dark in the twilight. His entire purpose in this game is to guide Riku along the path of destiny. When confronting Vexen, he tells him that Xemnas too walks the twilight between, making Riku and Xemnas have a lot in common. When Riku finally reaches the final door and smells Ansem, which, hold on, I see a lot of people making fun of Riku smelling people in Chain of Memories. It's really just a silly translation oversight, because in Japan, smelling could mean the same as sensing or touching. The same is actually also true in Polish, which for those of you that don't know, which is all of you, I also speak Polish. In Polish, the word touch is czuć or uczucie. When used in this context, you could say Riku czuje Ansem, which, although it can mean that he literally smells him, it can also mean that Riku feels Ansem's presence. Before Ansem's demise, he mentions that he gave all his darkness to Riku. That's a surprise tool that will be important later. What's interesting is that the Ansem we see in Chain of Memories, the Ansem that's a remnant of Riku's heart, is the last that we see of the original Ansem. From what I understand, the Ansem present in DDD and KH3 is a time-traveling version of himself plucked from right before getting defeated by Sora in KH1. So this would mean that KH3 Ansem doesn't have any of the memories being a remnant in Chain of Memories haunting Riku. So this scene of Ansem saying he'll return, this version of Ansem never does return. Interestingly enough, this also applies to the Guardian. This guardian is actually the original Terra. The guardian who we see in KH3, part of Terra Xehanort, is a time-traveling version of himself from right before Sora killed him, making the guardian also a time traveler. Although Ansem the Wise's machine rids Riku of his Ansem form, if the guardian is still somewhere inside Riku, that might mean that we could end up having two Terras somewhere down the line. Now, I doubt they'd actually take the story down this path, but it's something that has to be considered. During his death scene, as he attempts to plunge Riku into the abyss, King Mickey saves him. Although he wasn't able to save Aqua from the darkness, he was at least able to save Riku, perhaps giving him solace that he could at least save someone else. Near the end, Namine asks Riku if he wants her to put a tight lock on his heart to seal the darkness away. Riku, after looking at Sora, decides,
I don't need my heart locked. I'm ready. I'm gonna fight Ansem.
And if the darkness overtakes him,
then the darkness will show me the way.
A keyblade wielder willing to side with the darkness?
The ending of Chain of Memories is a critical moment in Riku's arc where he's forced to choose between the road to light or darkness. Xehanort, as the title of his game suggests, chose the dark road. Riku, on the other hand, doesn't choose any of the extremes. He doesn't think his heart is swayed one way more than the other. This introduces a nuanced notion of darkness that we haven't really seen in the series so far. Everyone's been very critical of the darkness so far, including Riku, but here he is, choosing his own path forward. This, of course, leads us to right before KH2 with a titular battle with Roxas where he calls upon the darkness and accepts the dark power within him. The Kingdom Hearts 2 opening shows us the third instance of Riku holding out his hand for Sora to grab. Throughout KH2, Riku's ashamed of who he's become, which is a stark contrast to Xehanort, who fully embraces the darkness in every one of his iterations. Starting from Kingdom Hearts 2, Riku replaces his Soul Eater keyblade with Way to Dawn, both of which containing a gazing eye, or at least something that resembles the Master's Eye from the no-name keyblade. It's interesting that all the foretellers also have a gazing eye on their keyblades or keychain, watching their every move. Moving on to Birth by Sleep, we get Riku's iconic pose being done by a different character, in this case Vanitas. Birth by Sleep's opening portion has a ton of references to KH1, so I just take this as visual symbolism, with Ben and Vanitas representing Sora and Riku respectively. When Terra and Aqua visit the Destiny Islands, little Riku really reminds me of little Xehanort, vice versa. At this point, they're both just kids wanting to know more about the world and dream about living a more interesting life. I have already said more than enough about both of their upbringings, so I'll just skip straight to the Blank Point Secret episode. This cinematic gives us a lot of clues given for future games. We see Mickey exploring the realm of darkness, which leads to 0.2. This scene of Riku and Kairi, which takes place during KH1, is later repurposed for Recoded. There's Donald and Goofy exploring Traverse Town, which we see from a different perspective in DDD. There's this mysterious scene of Kairi teaming up with the Twilight Town gang, which we still haven't gotten explained, but may have just happened during KH2 when she visited Twilight Town. We see Diz programming himself inside Sora, which DDD explains as Ansem the Wise hiding his research inside Sora. And then a seemingly random scene from 358 over 2 days, till the camera pans up, revealing Riku, before cycling through all the versions of Xehanort. This is followed by foreshadowing Kingdom Hearts 3 with Sora disappearing, and then Ventus leaving the Chamber of Waking. I almost wonder if the story about Terra, Ven, and Aqua during KH3 was originally going to take place during this teased BBS Volume 2. Considering one of the main aspects of KH3 is to save the 3 Keyblade wielders, I think it could have originally been purely the Wayfinder Trio's story. Of course, it is hinted that Sora would ultimately be the ones to save all of them, but that's only in the Blank Point scene, which wasn't released until the Final Mix version of the game. Meaning that by the time they were making Final Mix, BBS Volume 2 had already been cancelled, forcing them to proceed with figuring out how to merge the stories down the line in KH3. The reason they ultimately decided on creating KH3 as opposed to more non-numbered titles is because people kept asking Nomura when KH3 was going to come out, instead of playing the games that they were releasing and letting them cook with the story that they envisioned to tell. Dark Road's story was also envisioned to come out before 3, which we can see was very heavily teased in the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers. But as I've already said before, they couldn't dedicate a team to work on it since all hands on deck were working on KH3 to satisfy as many fans as possible. We saw history repeat itself, with a large portion of fans only caring about Kingdom Hearts 4, making their only console team focus on that, instead of what would have been their next game, Kingdom Hearts Missing Link. Recoded is undoubtedly one of the least consequential Kingdom Hearts games, but when the 2.5 Remix collection released in the late 2014, it added a few new cutscenes that connect to a number of Kingdom Hearts games, one of which is a cutscene titled Destiny, which takes place soon after Xehanort meets with the Master of Masters and time travels to right before DDD. Xehanort describes what his destiny holds as Luxu carefully examines his old classmate.
I will be led wherever it is I am destined to go. But of all the keyblades in existence, Master Xehanort's is the most ancient. That is my destiny. But it has yet to become a reality.
Dreaming into Dream Drop Distance, a lot of people discredit this game and don't rank it as highly as the other Kingdom Hearts games, but I think a lot of that is attributed to the game essentially being set up for Kingdom Hearts 3. Some of the things are intentionally left vague and open for interpretation until a future game concretely explains it. After being caught up in all the lore and revisiting the game, I admire it for setting up so many things, some of which you may not have even noticed. In Symphony of Sorcery, Riku encounters young Xehanort. Just like Ansem fed on Riku's insecurities in the past, young Xehanort attempts to do the same. He calls him the boy chosen by the keyblade. It's very ironic that Xehanort out of all people are telling Riku this, considering we now know his backstory from Dark Road. So let's rewatch this scene by changing the pronouns.
The boy chosen by fate, Xehanort.
What?
It was mine first, wasn't it? But I succumbed to the darkness I could not control. My prize, fate, passed on to Sora instead. My mistakes always end up being other people's problems.
Maybe so.
Xehanort's living his life in delusion, hanging on to the hope that he could still be the chosen one. We see him do radical things, all because he thinks he has the plot armor to save him, since he's been chosen by destiny. After his many battles with Eraqus and he grows old alone, it seems he lost all hope. He didn't become the child of destiny, and all his hopes of finding a trace of the friends from his dreams were gone. But when he asks the magic mirror, he received a glimmer of hope. It showed him where one of them are, leading him to Ventus. Ven's the one who sparked back his hope that everything could still be fixed. Just as Ansem first throws himself into darkness, just like he took off his keyblade armor to prove to himself that he's the child of destiny, he repeats this cycle of delusion by having Ven walk through a dark corridor without protection. He even explains to Ventus all the reasons why roaming the corridors without any protection is dangerous. But those words of caution are for the weak. I believe that a heart strong enough can withstand the strain. He then says, I suppose this is of no concern to someone who's closed off their heart. He explains to Ventus the requirements of becoming a child of destiny, and deludedly still has the hope to raise his arms in hope that he can embrace the emotions and let them flow into his heart. Will I finally be deemed worthy? In his fight with Eraqus 11 years prior, he states,
Will we be found worthy of the precious light the legend speaks of?
In Dark Road's version of this scene, we see Eraqus say he could never let it go, perfectly summarizing Xehanort's obsession with fulfilling a prophecy that was never meant for him. Eraqus realizes this when facing Ventus in BBS 2, again repeating that he could never let it go. Even though Xehanort brings Ven to Eraqus and tells him that he thinks Ven is the true child of destiny, the hope that he could amount to something was still there. The hope stayed with him all throughout KH3. He believed destiny was never left to chance, and that the world needed a leader to stand up and lead. Although his insecurities told him that they'd pick Eraqus to be the leader, and that did come true, he still believed he could do it. And in the end, he didn't end up being a leader or the child of destiny. He was left alone. And although he does end up disappearing with Eraqus, it's not the two old men that depart, but the two young friends, unburdened by their lives filled with sorrow and regret. In this scene with Riku, he mocks Riku for being the chosen one and not amounting to anything because of it, only becoming a burden to those around him. That's exactly how Xehanort's life went as well. His classmates all died to the darkness lurking within Baldur, and his only classmate to survive was Eraqus, whom he himself killed due to the darkness within his own heart. Eraqus died because of him. He used everyone in the real organization as a pawn, all to summon the keyblade, all for nothing. After Riku tells Xehanort to skip to where he tells him what this is all about, Xehanort does exactly that. He says,
I don't know how you did it, but you really have found a way to trap darkness inside your heart.
Obviously, this makes Riku useless to the organization since he can't become one of their 13. But let's think for a moment, how could someone being immune to darkness be useful? Who could use Riku's ability to trap darkness to their advantage? To all of you saying or thinking that this has to relate to the Master of Masters and the 13 Ancient Darknesses,
yep, you're right on the money.
Let's take a look at the Master's grand plan that he reveals in Union Cross.
And now, the Formless yearn to take over the bodies of those with strong hearts.
Strong hearts?
You can't destroy darkness if it has no form, which is why you need a vessel with a strong heart. That's where you all come in.
That's where Riku comes in.
I chose this fate for you because I believed you could bear it. There are 13 darknesses. We'll trap the most powerful 7 inside the hearts of each of us.
He reassures Luxu that he didn't train them all just for them to become vessels, so although they're being used to harbor darkness, he likely hopes to save them and put the burden onto someone else, someone even stronger, someone that could bear more than just one darkness.
That's the true purpose of the Keyblade War.
The fact that Riku's become immune to darkness means that he'd become the ultimate vessel. If Riku's the child of destiny, if Riku's light, I think this line here is a dead giveaway to that. And perhaps the most obvious example that these aren't just throwaway lines is that young Xehanort's final lines here mirror his final lines to Sora in KH3.
You've paid the price, and it lies at the bottom of the abyss.
It's clear that for some reason, young Xehanort knows so much more than we do. During this encounter with Ansem in DDD, he's still not aware that this Ansem before him is a time traveler, so he tells Ansem that he's part of his heart now. So Ansem replies,
Ever the fool boy, and forever a pawn of the darkness!
This is obviously hinting that this Ansem isn't part of Riku's heart, but calling him a pawn of darkness could further prove Riku being just that. If we look back to Chain of Memories, Naminé gave Riku the choice to get rid of all of the darkness inside him or continue living with it. If Riku would have chosen the former option, the Master of Masters' goal to lure him to Quadratum and become a vessel for all the darknesses would have failed. On the other hand, since Naminé returned, the option could still be possible. If Riku makes it back to the realm of light, he may have to choose whether to sacrifice all his memories in favor of destroying his ability to house darkness, or to become a vessel to trap darkness without knowing what the consequences may be. The concept that everyone's heart has darkness, and the darkness being the heart's true nature, has been a staple theme since Kingdom Hearts 1. But the underlying meaning behind that is that true darkness can also be lurking inside someone's heart without them realizing. This Dark Road scene has Xehanort questioning this very concept. He even asks Eraqus if he could turn his keyblade against someone who has no idea what they've become. Although he doesn't know it yet, Eraqus and Xehanort go through this exact conflict throughout their entire lives. Sora and Riku go through the same during KH1, but luckily Riku comes to his senses. Although Riku ends up being immune to darkness, the question remains, what if darkness could be borrowed up so deep into someone's heart that they don't even know it? We as the audience know that this is the case with Ventus, with him having no idea that he was being used as a vessel for darkness during Union Cross. So this line could also be foreshadowing for what's to come in the next saga. This is also heavily foreshadowed in BBS and especially KH3, where Vanitas outright reveals that he is a true darkness.
What I am is darkness.
But of course, this Vanitas is just a time-traveling replica, with the real darkness still lingering inside Ven, as we see in Remind. But speaking of Vanitas, if we look at his natural design, it looks oddly similar to Riku's dark form. From the veiny bits around his chest to a very similar looking skirt. To me, this is obviously signaling their strong relation to darkness, Vanitas as a being of true darkness, and Riku being the future vessel to hold true darkness. Returning again to Dark Road, there's a scene where both Xehanort and Eraqus recite the same exact line. Right before this, it shows Eraqus' line of thinking, which stems back to what Brain discovered. I think that the most likely answer is that Eraqus learned it either through his grandfather Brain, or through his family, who learned it from Brain. I've discussed this in my previous videos, but I think Brain was tainted by darkness, perhaps even one of the 13 ancient true darknesses, and sacrificed himself. We don't know what happens to Brain, but he's clearly not around in the realm of light anymore. Xehanort would have learned the same lesson through the player, who also would have gotten the same lesson from Brain. And I also realized that this is exactly what Xigbar must be referring to in KH3 when he says,
I don't admire one guy leaping into danger if it means someone else might have to jump in to save him. You're all just lining up to lose out, dooming others to take the fall with you.
His character file expands on this, and as if talking to the audience, he says, do I have to spell it out for you to get what I mean? It doesn't matter if you don't get it at all, but I want you to experience it just a little. A heart guided by a keyblade. More people than I can possibly count have disappeared due to self-sacrifice. Sora hearing him say this, or the audience reading the line from the character files book, indeed wouldn't get it at all. And perhaps every casual fan never will. But I'm sure that one of the people he's referring to is Brain. Xigbar is of course also teasing the ending of KH3 as he tells Sora,
You don't have any choice but to follow this sweet little trail of breadcrumbs. And at the end, you'll finally realize what destiny has in store for you. In fact, your reward might be right around the corner. You're so close!
Returning back to DDD, when Xigbar cleverly tells us that Versus 13 was cancelled, young Xehanort does Riku's iconic pose and tells Sora to
come with me,
before mirroring the scene of Riku holding out his hand. In the Japanese version, he says,
一緒に行こう.
which a more faithful translation would be,
We'll go together.
I mentioned this in an earlier video, but this is the only line spoken in Kingdom Hearts Key, spoken by Xehanort's ancestor, Ephemer.
一緒に行こう.
It's also a line in Kingdom Hearts 1's secret ending, and something that Sora says to Riku. It's all connected. The pieces have been laid out to us all along. All we had to do was reconnect them. The Kingdom Hearts 3 opening shows us Xehanort's eyes as they begin to glimmer as a purple light approaches. This is symbolism that Xehanort was soon to be completely overtaken by darkness, which I'm sure is what the Master was counting on. The opening perfectly shows us the Master's plan, the plan that stretches across the entire Kingdom Hearts series. The plan that would have led into Missing Link with the Book of Prophecies tricking the people of Old Skala to set up the pieces for the Dark Seeker saga. In KH3, Riku acquires a new keyblade yet again. Both Mickey's and Riku's keyblades break due to the powerful Heartless in the Realm of Darkness. I've seen a ton of people criticize Riku's new keyblade design, calling it a car key, but it's not supposed to be a car key at all, it's a dimple key. Dimple keys are common Japanese keys that are used in apartment buildings all across Shibuya. Considering we see Riku going to Quadratum with the dimple key, it's probably going to be used to open Sora's apartment door or something. Riku witnesses firsthand the effects of what darkness can do to a heart. He sees how it can overtake a heart, and may have internally connected this to his own previous experiences with darkness taking him over. He sees this again when directly interacting with his past replica, confidently remarking his feelings.
Wrong. My hour of weakness!
This game presents a lot of interesting lore relating to Ansem that I want to go over in a future video, so I'll be pretty brief, but I do want to highlight Ansem's final death scene. Riku and the Seeker of Darkness have a touching, almost family-like goodbye.
What a journey you and I have had.
You know, it's strange. I think I'm gonna miss you.
Your strength is vaster than darkness. I knew I never stood a chance. Part of me wanted to defy my fate, but when the others betrayed us, I found I did not care. And then, nothing else seemed to matter anymore.
He wanted to defy his fate. If we take this literally and we consider that all of the Xehanorts were playing into the Master of Masters' grand plan, I think they all deep down knew that they didn't have a chance at succeeding. They just didn't know what to do with themselves. At this point, Ansem considered abandoning the clash between light and darkness and not participating as a Dark Seeker. We see his true goals, what he actually cares about during his scenes with Ansem the Wise. In my Disney's World's Wishlist video, I mentioned a lot about the striking parallels that Xehanort has to Darth Vader, so I highly recommend you check out that video, as there are no filler videos on my channel. Just like Nomura-san, I'm honoring Kingdom Hearts' legacy and making it essential to watch all of my videos to be caught up in the KHTomorrow lore. Xehanort so desperately wanted to become someone special, someone honored. He wanted to live up to the title involving destiny. Riku, on the other hand, unaware that such a child even exists, may fit the criteria. Whether he is the child of destiny is unknown, but I think it makes a statement that if you try to force destiny upon yourself or others, you probably won't succeed. Destiny must naturally choose its leader, as Sora says.
You're not that person, Xehanort. A real leader knows that destiny is beyond his control, and accepts that.
Going back to Xehanort and Ventus walking along the corridor, I must point out that in the original 5.0 release of Dark Road, Xehanort reveals that the player told him, as written in the BOP, the one chosen to be a dark vessel could connect their hearts to others and feel what they feel. In the 5.1 release, they changed it to be that the Child of Destiny could do this. This makes me wonder if Xehanort was indeed the Child of Destiny, but the meaning of a Child of Destiny isn't the one that everyone expected. Since Xehanort laid the path for Ventus, Sora, and Riku, the most likely candidates for the so-called Child of Destiny, perhaps his role was to guide them into their proper place. He tells us that he merely guided the Wayfinder trio to their proper place. The idea of a Child of Destiny is really interesting to me because through watching Dark Road reaction videos, everyone immediately jumps to the conclusion that the answer clearly has to be Sora, and I've seen some mixed reactions to this. A lot of people say that they don't like the idea of Sora being the chosen one since it ruined his character of being just a random boy. Ruined the perception that anyone can be a hero, either by mere chance or by working hard to attain that goal. You're both right, and also completely missing the point, because you're falling right into the Master of Masters' plan. Assuming that the prophecy does indeed come from a copy of the Book of Prophecies, to reiterate again, the Book of Prophecies isn't used to predict events or make them happen, or so we're told. The Master of Masters, or whoever wrote the book, is only able to write the events that happen throughout the series by looking through the gazing eye. Meaning that Luxu had to have completed his role for this to happen, so everything that takes place is exactly how it originally happened. Except the existence of the Book of Prophecies is a paradox in and of itself. It's because of the book's existence that the Keyblade War happens. Not just this Keyblade War, but every Keyblade War. Even in Dark Road, Odin simply allows all of his classmates to perish and for Xehanort to go on his dark road, all because he knows that destiny is beyond his control. Although Xehanort didn't become Light's leader, he did in fact fulfill the duty of being a chosen one, just not the chosen one that he envisioned himself being. In Luxu's Secret Report 12, he writes, "Somewhere in the cyclical history of bequeathings, a chosen one will appear and reenact the Keyblade War. When the scapegoat arrives and takes my Keyblade in hand, that will be the time to take the stage and finish my role." The only way Luxu would be aware that a scapegoat would arise is if it's written in the Book of Prophecies, making my final verdict that everything that happened within Kingdom Hearts was indeed as the Master of Masters intended. The specifics and details of what happens on the journey doesn't matter. What matters is that all the pieces have aligned, paving the way for the Lost Masters to awaken. In Christianity, the deadly sin luxuria, also known as lust, represents a goat. In Kingdom Hearts, the foreteller to represent lust is Luxu, who's the second person to wield the no-name Keyblade after the Master of Masters. The Keyblade itself has a goat motif too, as if everyone who wields the Keyblade is just a goat. So from what we know, that includes Luxu, Xehanort, and Odin. There's an incredible amount of irony in the scene where young Xehanort monologues to the Master of Masters.
People carry delusions of having power, but it's a lie. They are but sheep pretending to be wolves. It's better they be ruled by darkness.
Yet Xehanort was the biggest sheep of them all. Young Xehanort says,
"They believe what they want to believe, using hollow reasons as justification. They repeat this cycle, and their darkness grows."
Feeding off Xehanort's lust for darkness, he tells him,
"If you truly possess great power, the darkness can't control you. You won't need a silly old coat to stay safe. In fact, you'll be the one controlling the darkness instead."
Which perfectly sets Xehanort on his dark road. The dark road that led him to becoming the scapegoat, a person who is blamed for the wrongdoings, mistakes, or faults of others. Xehanort was the cause of everyone's suffering within the Xehanort saga, including the burdens that all of the organization members felt. This is visually reflected by Xehanort possessing each of the organization members' powers. But this meaning goes beyond that. He bears the blame for everything that happens within Kingdom Hearts. We were under the impression that this entire saga was the Xehanort saga, that Xehanort was the big villain orchestrating all of the events, but the cracks of the true mastermind have always been there. The video title and thumbnail may be about Riku and Xehanort, but it hasn't been about them at all. It's truly about the Master of Masters. It always has been. It's all a game of deception. All the characters who wielded the Master's Keyblade have bared the blame and wrongdoings of the Master of Masters. On average, from what I've seen, those that played KH3 on release weren't very satisfied with Xehanort's conclusion. But the truth is that they didn't have the context behind the conclusion. The context within the cracks of the following projects like Remind, Melody of Memory, Dark Road, and what would have been Missing Link. They lack the foresight that Xehanort has claimed to have. I think we've all been deceived, and the truth lies within the Book of Prophecies. In fact, all the answers lie within the book. When Brain asks Darkness why it chose to use Ven as a vessel, Darkness says that it was decided. Everything was decided, as Xehanort tells us in Dream Drop Distance. Xehanort and Ventus were destined to meet. All of that must have been written within the Book of Prophecies, as vague as it may be. During the Master's final confrontation with Luxu, he says,
"There's no way for us to win against the darkness. That's why we needed to use the time we had to get all those Keyblade wielders ready to pass the torch to the next generation. This world exists to nurture the dandelions, our little seeds of light, so they can be sown into the future, where they can stop the darkness. Then the sun will finally set on this duskless dawn."
The purpose of Daybreak Town was to eventually birth a child that would bring an end to darkness. The child of destiny, as you may say. It's unknown what happens to the dandelions and if their descendants form some of the bloodlines seen in old school Scala, but one thing is certain. Ephemer is the only Union leader that's naturally survived the Keyblade War and Daybreak Town's destruction. His descendant Xehanort is claimed to be the child of destiny, yet fails, leaving who I claim is his brother available to take on the mantle. But if everything was decided, then that means Strelitzia was in fact destined to die and be replaced by Ven as a Union leader. Luxu may be right when he questions if all of the events are just another phase in the Master's grand plan. And if he is, then Darkness choosing Ven as a vessel is no coincidence. In fact, Darkness says that they chose Ven because it was decided he would harbor Darkness. I actually didn't remember the details about this scene, I just kind of came across it as I was finishing editing, but doesn't this sound exactly like what I describe Riku's role to be in the present?
Your vessel was chosen?
Yes. It was written in the Book of Prophecies.
So who's truly the child of destiny? Well, the original Japanese translation is even more direct. When referring to why they chose Ven to harbor darkness, they state that the child of destiny is written in the Book of Prophecies. So there it is, there's our answer. Neither Riku or Xehanort are the child of destiny, since darkness clearly states that Ven's been chosen as the vessel, right? Well, I don't think it's that simple, so I need to take us back to Dark Road one last time. As Odin stands in the corner, unwilling to interfere to let destiny play out as intended, the lower classmen realize that true darkness has no form, which leads Xehanort to question how it'd be possible to destroy something that has no form. When Vidar asks the same question to Odin, he tells us that the actions taken by the Lost Masters leads them to believe that if darkness already chose a vessel to inhabit, defeating it is impossible, the vessel being a necessary sacrifice. What if we were all wrong, and the Child of Destiny wasn't someone to be celebrated, but indeed someone chosen to be a dark vessel, as the 5.0 version of this scene reveals? Playing along with this idea, if Ven is the Child of Destiny and he does need to be sacrificed during Kingdom Hearts 4, then this Birth by Sleep scene will have a lot more value.
Put an end to me.
As far as Odin's aware, he thinks Baldur's been chosen as a dark vessel, therefore being the Child of Destiny. What's interesting is that Luxu's back to being the Master of Masters puppet in this game, since he isn't looking to get deeply involved. He's back to the idea of sitting and watching Destiny play out as he did during the early years of Key and Union Cross, meaning whatever happened during Missing Link completely changed back his perspective. And when it turns out that Baldur isn't the Child of Destiny, with him not even harboring a true darkness, Luxu states, tough luck, no chosen one yet. From my interpretation, this means Luxu doesn't know who the Child of Destiny will be either, and at least for the time being, he was under the impression that Baldur could be the chosen one. To go back to Odin's explanation, Vidar is unsatisfied with the idea that this chosen one has to be sacrificed. Odin's response sounds very similar to what the Master of Master tells Luxu. But unlike what the Master tells Luxu, Odin proposes an alternative, Kingdom Hearts. Although it's unclear whether purging the worlds by summoning Kingdom Hearts would abolish darkness in the process, there is a chance. Purging the worlds may be the only way without relying on the Child of Destiny. Xehanort, learning all of this, clearly got his gears turning, as just a few years later, he'd be the one fighting the new leader of Scala, Eraqus, over summoning Kingdom Hearts. Meaning, true darkness must have returned, or in BBS's terms, they found the Legions of Darkness at their doorstep, leading them to transform Scala into Land of Departure, trapping darkness inside. Although I imagine this is just a temporary solution, because as the KH4 screenshot suggests, Mickey finds himself within Scala, meaning true darkness will return. Kairi's grandma tells us this all the way back in Kingdom Hearts 1. She tells us that true light sleeps deep within the darkness, and someday a door to the innermost darkness will open and the true light will return. In BBS's version of the story, it transitions to the Land of Departure, to Scala ad Caelum, where Ventus takes his long sleep. I swear, there's nothing as interconnected as Kingdom Hearts. It's literally the ultimate art form once you truly understand it. Xehanort's entire life purpose was to summon Kingdom Hearts and see what awaited beyond the Keyblade War. Xehanort was going to be our savior. He understood that the light of Kingdom Hearts could give them a new start. He knew that the world needed someone to stand up and lead. No one understood that he was actually trying to save the world from an even greater threat, from true darkness. He knew that although he wasn't the Child of Destiny, this was the other option to save the world. What if the Child of Destiny was someone who would be daring enough to summon Kingdom Hearts and purge the world to save the light? What if that's what makes him the Child of Destiny? What if that's what would make him Light's master? Whether he is or isn't, it's clear that Xehanort knew this was his last chance to see if he'd be deemed worthy to see true light. If you remember, the Master of Masters created the Keyblade War during Key to create a truce between light and darkness. Summoning Kingdom Hearts then did plunge the world into darkness, but as the legend states, light survived in the hearts of children. In Kingdom Hearts 3, due to Sora rewriting fate and stopping Xehanort, the truce is over. I won't be giving any spoilers, but if you've ever played Nier Replicant or Automata, you know that the game tricks you into thinking everything you're doing is right. It tricks you into having a certain perspective, because darkness equals bad and light equals good, right? People praise Kingdom Hearts 2 for having the twist be that nobodies aren't truly all bad. Everyone hates nobodies due to their ignorance to them. It's just the fate of a nobody, right? Eraqus is another perfect example of how perspectives can be used against you. He hates darkness with all his life, but he's so consumed by the light that he may let false light dictate the future. Eraqus has been so caught up in believing light that he forgot about the shadows they cast. In Kingdom Hearts 3, the characters all rightfully hate Xehanort, but there's the underlying morality question of would it be fine to sacrifice everyone in order to stop darkness from prevailing? I think Kingdom Hearts 3's ending is a masterpiece that people still don't understand. Even those who loved the game, I'm not sure if everyone understood the message, as it wasn't clearly spelled out. Aside from Sora disappearing, most think, oh, Sora stopped Xehanort and darkness from prevailing. Happy ending, woohoo! But this is where the Master's safety plan comes in. Like Xehanort, there's always a backup plan. The plan involving everything I've gone over. The plan involving Riku, Xehanort, and the Book of Prophecies. As I've been saying, the Book of Prophecies holds all the answers for us and the Kingdom Hearts' story. But its importance isn't understood. For the average Kingdom Hearts fan, they're just words of truth misunderstood as they explore the secret of tomorrow. The truth is, everyone's just a piece on a chessboard. Xehanort may have gotten knocked out, but he played his role. He led all the pieces where destiny needed them to go. He led Riku on his journey outside Destiny Islands, fed on his insecurities to have him accept the darkness as a means to get stronger. Had him deny the darkness, fear the darkness, and eventually grow to accept both light and darkness and not fear either, but to live in the twilight. His journey led him to become resilient enough to withstand darkness, all to be available to be used as a vessel to harbinger darkness. Through the gazing eye, the Master watched as the kids changed destiny, when in reality, it was all to get to unreality. The world of fiction. Like the sigil etched in the thumbnail, Xehanort's role was etched to guide Riku onto his destined road. Not the dark road, not the twilight, nor to light, but the road to unreality, in order to meet the Master of Masters and his true destiny be fulfilled. That is the true purpose of Riku and Xehanort. Alright, I hope you all enjoyed the video that's a little more scattered and less linear. I'll be giving you one more clue as to why Riku and Xehanort are related, and it's actually one of the key reasons for deciding to make this video, so you just have to stick with me through this outro. YouTube just added a YouTube hype feature which you can use for this video if you enjoyed it. For those of you that haven't watched any of my YouTube videos before, hi, hello, I'm KHTomorrow, and I usually go by Purple outside of my socials, which is why Purple's the subtitle of my logo. My Instagram and Twitter have been absolutely blowing up, and I really just can't thank you enough. I don't even use Instagram, but I get notifications for it literally like every second, which is just crazy. I originally started writing this video in May alongside my Sigurd video, and then I made a proof of concept intro for the video at the end of June, which is what you're seeing here on screen when I was actually on vacation back in like early July. And I was really planning on releasing the video at the start of August, which then turned to the end of August, and then I started back college and could only work on the video on weekends. So I spent every moment of my free time working on the video and planning an advertising campaign around it, which you can sign up for my Patreon for either $5 or $10 a month, where I give notes on where I'm at with my theories, I give special previews, speeders of the thumbnails that I do, and more. Everyone who subscribes to the Patreon gets to be featured in the video, and I haven't really marketed my Patreon, so I only have Star Time or Star Raven as I know you go by on Twitter, so thank you. Part of the original conception of this video started because I wanted to explore the possibility of there being an original timeline, which then led me on a rabbit hole on figuring out who the Child of Destiny is, with Riku and Xehanort having a ton of connections that I wanted to explore. I don't take myself to be a writer, but I've always wanted to use storytelling in conveying an idea. And I think I did that throughout the video by presenting ideas about there being an original timeline, and by the end, naturally debunking them. As I kept researching and connecting the pieces, the more I realized that everything's been orchestrated by the Master of Masters, and nothing would have happened without him. I'm probably going to remake the parts about the Master of Masters and his true goal, because I didn't even expect the video to be about that. It just kind of naturally formed throughout my months of research. And as for the alternate thumbnail for the video, I created this super last minute because I realized that the video was turning into something else than I originally intended, so I wanted to market it properly. So I made this Master of Masters picture just to use for a few seconds for the intro, but then I came up with the idea of combining them and accidentally made it work very well. Riku's feet line up with the Master of Masters on the left, which is completely accidental, but in terms of what it represents now that it's become a reality, is that Riku holds the Master's grand plan. Riku needs to walk so the Master can run. And now, onto the final hint about Riku and Xehanort, which is from the Missing Link announcement trailer. It shows us a parallel that's directly shoved in our face with little Riku alongside Xehanort and the text, "Everything is connected." I'm here to inform, I'm here to educate, I'm here to be your wayfinder as we approach the road of tomorrow.